Welcome to Trash Talk Reverse. This is Harry, and today we're going to be watching the Season 1 finale. It's been a long road, but we have finally made it. Last episode ended with Ned dying, and I'm wondering, couldn't he have been like, hey everyone, now that I've got your attention, Joffrey and the kids are Jaime Lannister's bastards because Cersei and Jaime were getting it on, and they pushed my son out of a window, and they killed Jon Arryn, and I know this because of Pycelle and Littlefinger and Varys leading me to this conclusion. Like, yeah, I know you're looking out for your kids, but at that point, I mean, what are they gonna do? Everyone heard it, even if they deny it. A rumor's a rumor. You know, in this town, people are gonna demand some answers. If only Sansa had managed to escape just like Arya did, Ned shouldn't have had any trouble telling everyone what he'd discovered. Of course, the real issue is he should have told people as soon as he found it out, and not Cersei and Littlefinger. He should have told people that it was actually relevant to. Robert and Renly and Sir Barristan Selmy shout it from the rooftops like, dude. But I'm not going to go on too long about that because I have talked about Ned's decision making this entire season, and we need to give that horse a rest. As I said in the last episode, the one redeeming factor was that Joffrey was the one to call the shots on killing Ned. But after that scene in episode 3, maybe Cersei should have been a bit more wary of her son's decision making and should have done a better job of instructing him as a future leader. Of course, we don't have enough character development for Joffrey at all to know otherwise, but if she really wanted to keep Ned alive for his usefulness, as Varys said in the last episode, a live wolf is better than a dead one, then she should have just had him quote-unquote confess in the throne room and not in front of the townspeople with an executioner on hand. I mean, who told those people anyway? Like, after Ned got caught, were they just running around telling everybody, hey, this guy's a traitor? I think it's a little hard to believe that Cersei wouldn't have known her son well enough to know what he would do, but I guess everyone else didn't realize Joffrey would go off script once he got a taste of that power. But this is technically his first taste of power, and he hasn't been well established as a ruler, and we haven't seen how the reception of the masses influences him. But at any rate, I am interested to know in this episode what that dialogue between Cersei and Joffrey is going to look like if they debrief after that whole situation, which I would imagine they will, because keeping a scene like that out of the season finale would be really stupid. I also know that this is the episode where Drogo dies and a lot of crazy stuff goes down with Dany. I'm really thinking that Jorah gets caught out as the spy in the next season, and I've just been spiraling about some nonsense for the past few episodes. In another storyline, we have Jon struggling with whether he should stay at the Wall or go join his family, and I know that in this episode he leaves, so I'm looking forward to seeing how that dialogue plays out with the brothers of the Night Watch who go and get him back. And finally, we know that Robb defeated Jaime Lannister in the last episode, so this episode should hopefully be wrapping up that part of the storyline and showing us a way forward for the next season. So without further ado, let's get into the season 1 finale of Game of Thrones. And here we are with the theme of this show one last time for this season. I do have to give props to Ramin Djawadi as a composer. He's got some great pieces across this whole show in terms of the score, and the theme is definitely one of them. It's very iconic. I do have to say though, the music he composed for Westworld season 1 is just on another level. I feel like he was just so much more innovative, which makes sense because a medieval show like this is gonna have more of this sort of orchestral instrumentation, whereas in Westworld he was able to play around with different instrumentation, and also the old westernized version of modern day songs was really well done. And speaking of Westworld, I do prefer the theme song in that show to this one, as well as the title cards. And while we're at it, I have to say the main themes and title cards of Black Sails and The Last Kingdom really set a high bar for me. I mean, not only are the scores for those shows so incredible, but the main themes are really so evocative. And the title sequence of The Last Kingdom in particular, which is a map like this one, just takes it to a whole nother level that this map isn't able to do. But I still think this main theme and title is cool.
You remember me now, boy? There's a bright boy. And you'll be keeping your mouth shut. Keep your mouth shut, boy.
I'm not a boy!
You're not a smart boy, is that what you're trying to say? Do you want to live, boy?
I wish he hadn't talked during that previous shot. I wish he only started talking when we got to this part of the scene, in the alley.
I'm not afraid of some hole in the ground.
Remember a few episodes ago how I said it would be nice to see Asha going beyond the wall with Bran because of the bonding? I'm glad to see they're doing some more bonding right now, but again, I still wish she'd gone over the wall with them.
I came to see Father. He was down here. I saw him last night.
Only naturally should be in your thoughts and dreams. That doesn't mean that...
So Rickon also had the same dream? I know they're playing it off like they were both dreaming about it because that's what they were both afraid of, but doesn't it turn out that Bran was able to see that dream because of the three-eyed raven magical powers or whatever? So then why is Rickon able to see it? Or am I just asking a dumb question? I would have preferred to see her and Robb's immediate reaction to the news. I know we're seeing it here, but there's just something different about the way that news hits a character immediately, and I really would have liked to see that. It's not like that takes the moment away from them, I just think it would have been interesting, but clearly this moment is still well done.
You've ruined your sword.
I complained about the show not being good at conveying emotion in the last episode. It's crazy that it took Ned's death for the emotion in this show to start coming out, but I'm glad that it has.
I'm gonna kill them all.
We have to get the girls back.
and then we will kill them all.
Her acting in this whole season, by the way, I'll talk about that more at the end of the episode, but I just wanted to note it here.
Tell me, which do you favor? Your fingers or your tongue? I could just cut your throat.
Every man needs hands, Your Grace.
Good. Tongue it is.
I think Joffrey's decision in the last episode has definitely made an impact on this show going forward. However, I stand by what I said last episode and in the intro of this episode that I would have liked to see a lot more character development for Joffrey this season leading up to that decision. Because it's not that it comes out of nowhere, I mean it doesn't, but it just would have felt better written overall.
I'll leave the rest of the matters to you, Mother.
Are they not going to talk about it? That's one of the things I was hoping to see in this episode. I thought for sure Cersei and Joffrey would want to have a sit-down talk about his decision last episode.
And as soon as you've had your blood, I'll put a son in you.
He's still going to marry her?
Please let me go home. I won't do any treason, I swear.
Mother says I'm still to marry you, so you'll stay here and obey.
Okay, so he listens to his mom on that end. And I understand Cersei's decision because as long as they have Sansa in their court, Robb and Catelyn are kind of at a disadvantage. But once again, Joffrey's like picking and choosing when he listens to his mom. And also in his scene with Sansa a few episodes before when he gave her the necklace or whatever and kissed her, he seemed like a completely different person than he is right now. Like this ruthlessness is coming out of, I don't want to say out of nowhere because we saw that there were seeds of him being kind of problematic, but this is taken to a newer level and I feel like we didn't see that transition or development in Joffrey as a character. Like clearly we see he's on a power trip, we just don't see the evolution of him getting here because we haven't seen enough of him from before the decision to kill Ned. The scenes that he did get, whether it was with Cersei or with Sansa, were not enough. It's good to see how Joffrey acts as a ruler, but even what we're seeing now is a far cry from what we saw when he was talking to Barristan Selmy, which was like his first official time that he was on the throne. And I know the show was going for shock value, but I wish there was more characterization of Joffrey this season so he would feel more developed from start to finish, rather than it feeling like he was like different people depending on what the scene asked of him. And then after Ned's death, he's just this one crazy person all the way through. It's a disservice to the character, I think.
Lear's not right. My lords. My lords.
I feel like I've mentioned this before, but sometimes it just feels like the background acting in this show feels really staged. The extras that have like one line speaking roles, when they speak up or when they laugh, all of it sounds really fake. I don't think it's an acting issue. I don't know what the issue is. It just feels like it's not cohesive and it doesn't feel organic when you hear all these voices suddenly shouting out all these different things, not only in this episode, but in previous episodes where people have laughed, or that one episode with Lysa Arryn where people were like, I'll fight for you, I'll fight for you, I'll fight for you.
Even the gods are wrong.
Again, the laughter seemed so prompted, it didn't feel like an organic response.
I'll have peace on those terms. They can keep their red castle and their iron chair too.
And again.
Am I your brother, now and always? My sword is yours, in victory and defeat from this day until my last day.
See, Theon's response felt natural. That random guy in the middle was just kind of like, whatever. So sorry to all the Jon Snow fans out there, but Robb Stark really deserved the King in the North title so much more than he did. I really like that it was Umber who stood up and said, Robb is my king, and I think that little arc between them was pretty well developed. As long as you take out that one scene I mentioned, and I think it was episode 8, where the wolf bit his fingers off, I thought that scene was unnecessary, but I like their little arc because Umber was questioning Robb's methods in the last episode, I believe, when he told the spy that they were going to go after Tywin. And then, of course, Robb won. So I think it's really nice to see that Robb has proven himself to Umber of all people. And the show has also done a good job of establishing Umber as very outspoken and sort of a leader figure. So for them to have given him that characterization leading up to this moment, I think was a really good choice because we really buy that he would say this, and we really buy that everyone else would be like, yeah, he's totally right. Like, not only have we seen Robb do amazing in this role, but we have someone like Umber vouching for him. If not for Catelyn not knowing the whereabouts of Arya and Sansa, I swear she'd be like, slit this dude's throat right now.
Widowhood becomes you. Your bed must be lonely. I'm not at my best, but I think I can be of service.
Beat his ass, beat his ass.
Slip out of that gown and we'll
smack him with the rock. Get him. Boom. Deserved. He's such an asshole. He really did not deserve that redemption arc. He's worse than Cersei, honestly. Because Cersei at least had a couple moments in this season where she felt more sympathetic, like when she was talking about how she was genuinely in love with Robert. But this dude has not had a single nice moment. And I know you're thinking, oh, that makes for an even better redemption arc. I really disagree. I think he would have done better as a villain for the rest of this show.
My son, how did he come to fall from that tower?
I pushed him out the window.
I kind of hate that this is how she found out.
Why?
I hoped the fall would kill him.
Why?
I was kind of hoping that this conversation would include him sort of hinting at what happened to Bran and then her kind of coming to the conclusion that he had something to do with it and being like, you're the one who tried to kill my kid, right?
You should get some sleep. It's going to be a long war.
He's so apathetic. I knew Cersei had a thing with Lancel, but I'm just thinking out loud here. Why are you attracted to men from your own family? Like, you got some issues, girl.
They have my son. The Stark boy appears to be less green than we'd hoped.
If I was Tyrion, I'd be like, wow, so you were up my ass last episode about Jaime being amazing, and guess who got himself caught?
Perhaps we should sue for peace.
There's your piece. Joffrey saw to that when he decided to remove Ned Stark's head. You'll have an easier time drinking from that cup than you will bringing Robb Stark to the table now.
I don't like that metaphor. That feels really forced.
Get out, all of you. Not you.
I hate it when they do that in movies or shows, when they're like, everyone get out. And then just as the person that they want to stay is about to leave, they're like, actually, you stay. Just say from the beginning, everyone but Tyrion, leave the damn room.
You were right about Eddard Stark. If he were alive, we could have used him to broker a peace with Winterfell and River Run. Madness. Madness and stupidity.
That's what I've been saying for most of this season.
I always thought you were a stunted fool. Perhaps I was wrong.
I don't remember when Tyrion said this about Ned. I feel like I would have remembered him saying that. I might have to go back and look at the previous episodes, but in the event that he didn't say anything, that's a weird thing to happen off screen. Also, I feel like Tywin himself would have advised not to kill Ned, just like Cersei knew not to kill Ned.
You will go to King's Landing. You will serve as Hand of the King in my stead. You'll bring that boy king to heel and his mother too, if needs be.
Why not anyone? Why me?
You're my son.
I really liked that final exchange between Tywin and Tyrion in that scene. I just don't like what led up to it, because we saw Tywin literally like trying to get him killed by sticking him in the vanguard. We saw Tywin boasting about Jaime to him. We saw Tywin being nasty, but I don't remember seeing Tyrion proving himself, except with the Stone Crows or whatever. They came through. But the stuff he said about Ned, I really don't remember that. So I would have appreciated a bit more of Tyrion talking strategy in previous episodes coming into this scene.
My son.
I kind of had this vague image in my head that at the end of this season, when Dany births the dragons, there's like a shot of Jorah kind of being shocked and looking at them, right? Because he's never seen dragons before. So all that stuff I was saying before about isn't Dany gonna find out about Jorah being a spy in this season? Just ignore me. I guess I was misremembering because I was trying so hard to find out what else happens with Dany's arc in this season, and that felt like the next thing.
How did my son die?
The women say.
What do the women say?
I love her acting in this scene.
Warned you that only death can pay for life. You knew the price.
You don't have to sound so smug about it.
When will he be as he was?
When the sun rises in the west, sets in the east.
I do remember this. I'm just wondering why the writers were like, hey, let's have Dany save a woman from the most vile type of assault imaginable, and then have that woman do like this weird evil revenge thing.
You knew what I was buying.
It was wrong of them to burn my temple.
My child was innocent.
Now he will burn no cities. Now his Khalasar will trample no nations into dust.
I saved you.
3 of those riders had already raped me before you saved me, girl. In the streets I saw piles of heads. The head of the baker who makes my bread.
Look, I get where she's coming from in that, yes, she saw horrible things happen and horrible things happened to her, but why take that out on Dany? Oh wait, it's because the writer said, well, we need to have this white girl come in, save the person of color from the other savage POC, and then be like, oh, surprise, the woman who's a POC is also a savage, who's a terrible person. And look, I don't think the show or George R. R. Martin were like intentionally like, oh, we're gonna make these people of color super, super terrible people and do super terrible things. But it's so hard not to read it like that, knowing the history that Western media has with people of color and the way that they're depicted, especially Eastern people of color. And it's hard to ignore the fact that writers like this can have preconceived biases that cause them to create storylines like this. And what sucks even more is that they're using this as like a character development moment for Dany. That really rubs me the wrong way, because I know she's gonna burn this lady alive, and then Dany's gonna come out alive, and ooh, big strong character moment. I mean, Dany's already one of my favorite characters in this show, has always been that way, but I really don't like this. I love the way her character was done earlier this season with the whole Viserys arc. I hate this part of the arc. I really don't like it.
You can't. Get out my way, son.
I think they should have come to Jon before they went to Dany in this episode.
Are you afraid that I'm dancing around the court with my tits out? I'm funny now. I'm Shade, a funny whore.
I don't like her dialogue for some reason.
We're sorry about your father. But it doesn't matter. You took the oath. You can't leave.
I don't care.
Hear my words and bear witness to my vow.
I pledge my life and honor to the Night's Watch.
I don't hate this scene, but I don't love it either. And the reason is something I was talking about for a long time in the last episode. I think Jon's decision doesn't work as a character moment unless there is no oath, because then the decision to come back is not really his decision. If Jon was going to leave and never come back, then yeah, it should have been after he swore the oath. But because he is coming back, it's a bigger decision for him to not have sworn the oath and for there to be no threat of getting his head chopped off due to desertion, meaning that he chose that decision because he genuinely believed he belonged at the Night's Watch. Also, if this is all that takes to get Jon back, that was really fast. And that doesn't make it a good character moment at all, because there was barely a struggle. The idea was there, the execution was not.
When the sun rises in the west and sets in the east, then you shall return to me, my sun and stars.
Another moment where finally the show is really hitting it home with the emotion. And obviously a big part of that is credit to her acting. Damn, Jason Momoa, don't blink. Now this is a great character moment. I hated that they dragged his death out in such a ridiculous way, but this end result of her having to suffocate his essentially lifeless form is really great.
For the past 67 years, I have truly known more kings than any man alive.
I hate the way this dude talks. You are way too slow, dude. Like, let's pack it up. I wish he was saying this to somebody that was actually relevant to the story and not to Roz. Like, you're really having him give us exposition while we watch her wash herself? Like, don't do that. You could have easily had him talking to Varys or Littlefinger, literally anybody else. If the writers think that people are not going to care about the story unless there's a naked girl on screen, then maybe you need to do better with the writing.
Things? What?
When you started, never mind.
Till the next time.
Really badly crafted scene. Just really bad. Why are we watching this? We are spending way too much time with Pycelle this episode. Like, I literally do not care.
I must be one of the few men in this city who doesn't want to be king.
You must be one of the few men in this city who isn't a man. You can do better than that.
I was literally about to say the exact same thing.
Do you spend a lot of time wondering what's between my legs?
I love that.
A gash. A man from another land, feared by all.
Do you lie awake at night fearing my gash? A grasper from a minor house with a major talent for befriending powerful men and women.
See, now this is how you do backstory in a compelling way. These two characters and the way they interact with each other and their scenes together and the way they're written just work. And when you put this in comparison to episode 7, where Littlefinger was basically monologuing while the two girls were getting it on in the background, you can really see the stark contrast between good writing and bad writing.
What's your name?
Ari.
I feel like I would have moved around some of the scenes. I feel like I would have had this earlier.
So keep to yourself, and when you're pissed, do it in the woods alone.
I really appreciate Yoren just straight up helping Ned. Like, he barely knows this guy. Ooh, Jack and Hagar, right? The one under the hood.
I already killed one fat boy.
Okay, so confirmation, he did get killed. But like I said, that came too early in her character arc.
Oh, you like picking on the little ones, do you?
I hate that in season 8, Arya and this guy got it on. I hate that. I know they were like, oh, she's 18, which means she's gonna prove herself as a woman. I don't know the exact words that the showrunners used, but I think they said something along those lines. Why can't Arya just become a mature adult without that?
Was your moonlight ride that tiring?
Of course he knows.
We beheaded everyone that ran away for the night. Only ghosts would guard the wall.
That's why it wasn't very impactful that Jon left for a split second, because not only had he already sworn the oath, but according to this guy, people leave all the time.
Outside Eastwatch, because of Pike's men discovered 4 blue-eyed corpses.
I'm thrilled as anyone to have more White Walker related plot in this show, but I don't think they sat with Jon's grief enough. We sat enough with Arya and Sansa and Robb and Catelyn. We didn't really see Bran coping with grief, and we haven't seen Jon coping with grief, except for the 2 seconds he was outside the gates.
Unlike us, they were wise enough to burn them.
Hey, Jon did tell y'all to burn them, and you were the one who said, actually, let's give them to Maester Aemon to study.
When dead men, and worse, come hunting for us in the night, you think it matters who sits on the Iron Throne?
I like this a lot because this is the theme that I've been so desperate for, and I know it's not going to come to fruition in this show, and it's not going to be very well developed for the rest of the show, but in this moment, I feel like it could have been executed better. I feel like Mormont saying this could have been better tied in with the rest of the story. Like, remember in the previous episode, Walder Frey was like, Baratheon, Stark, Lannister, blah, blah, blah. Why should I care about any of you guys? And it cut to the wall. I'm not saying you have to do a transition like that, but I personally would have liked to see more of a seamless threading, I guess you could call it, than what we just got here.
Because I want you and your wolf with us when we ride out beyond the wall tomorrow.
Boom, finally.
So I'll only ask you once, Lord Snow. Are you a brother of the Night's Watch or a bastard boy who wants to play at war?
I really like the end of his speech there. I feel like that redeemed the scene for me. Still, I would have liked this part of the thread to have been more cohesively tied in with Jon's struggle with going back south and staying here. I guess I can see now why they did it after he swore the oath, just because of timing, but I still would have liked to see them do Jon's struggle and then the swearing of the oaths and then this. Like, maybe he has the struggle and he struggles with it for a while, and without the oath, it's not like he's stuck at the wall because he can leave whenever he wants. And throughout that struggle, we also see Lord Commander Mormont talking about all this stuff and everything that's happened with the White Walkers that they've been seeing and dealing with the past few episodes, and then have him drop this bomb and be like, you can either swear your oaths with the rest of the kids tonight and come with us tomorrow, or you can go running back to your brother and avenge your father's death, which is going to be meaningless since the White Walkers are going to get y'all anyway. But at any rate, I'm excited that they're finally about to go beyond the wall. She needs to wipe that smirk off her face.
I am Daenerys Stormborn, of House Targaryen, of the blood of old Valyria. I am the dragon's daughter.
The blood of old Valyria. So the Targaryens are from the east originally, right? And they conquered the west. And then Dany's come back east. That, more than anything, supports what I've been saying this whole season, that in season 8, Dany should have come back to the east. This is her true place. She's literally of Valyrian blood. This is her place. The Targaryens overstepped their boundaries and went and conquered Westeros because they had dragons. They did it just because they could. It would have been such a good character arc for Dany to learn that, yes, my true place is in the east. It also helps negate some of the effects of the white Western savior vibes that you kind of get from her in this show. Like, look, I like Dany as a character, but come on, I'm not going to ignore those undertones. Yeah, I remember this image, just vaguely. I don't know why I thought Jorah was going to leave this season when I had this image in my mind of him seeing Dany with the dragon babies. This season has brought up a lot of nudity discourse and sex discourse in general. This is one of those moments in TV/movies where I think it's appropriate to have nudity because it has meaning and logically it makes sense. Yeah, this is a powerful moment, and this piece of the score is one of my favorites. But I hate the shots they ended on. I hate how they were like zooming out, and then they ended on this really non-discrepant wide shot. Well, that was a wrap on the season 1 finale, and you know what? This was actually a great episode for the most part. I want to rehash everything I've been talking about throughout these commentaries, but just to quickly go through them. With Jon, I feel like the characterization in the first 4 episodes was really bad, and generally the scenes at the wall were pretty bad, and the camaraderie felt very fake. But then with like the latter half of episode 7, the writing for that part of the show suddenly got way better. Dany, like I mentioned, mostly great arc with Viserys, really bad arc that followed after, and the part of the arc that was in this episode was one of the few things I really did not like about this episode. We also had Robb Stark. He was kind of floating in and out of episodes for the show until we got to, I believe, episode 8, and then I think his characterization was done pretty well. Then there's Theon. Earlier this season, they really forcefully started sowing in some seeds about Theon's eventual betrayal. Tyrion has kind of been hit or miss. I think he started strong, and then during the trial episode and the one after, so that would be 6 and 8 because he wasn't in 7, that suddenly felt like it took a massive dip. And even the last episode with Tyrion just felt kind of like, I don't really care. But then this episode he shot back up, even though again he's not in this episode that much. I mean, this show sometimes feels like it's written very robotically. It's like they're in the writer's room like, okay, we need 3 scenes of people telling Theon that the Starks own him. Okay, next. Now we need a character moment for Robb, which is what they did with the first scene where we meet Umber. And then they're like, okay, now we need some random backstory from Tyrion, which is what they did last episode with that weird drinking game with Shay and Bronn. Like, they don't follow the story organically. They don't reveal the backstory organically. They don't reveal exposition organically. They just throw it in when they feel like it. And even in this episode, you could see that exposition was still a problem with that scene with Pycelle. Like, you can't tell that to anybody else, and the dialogue can't be better. We also had Varys and Littlefinger. I think Varys is a much more interesting character than Littlefinger. I just don't like the way Littlefinger is written, but for some reason, when he's with Varys, their conversations really do shine. And it's in this episode and episode 5 that they have like such good conversations with each other. Catelyn made some really poor decisions, and in the middle of the season, she really lost all agency. Like, I cannot believe she did not say a single word to Lysa Arryn, did not even consider standing up to her until we got to episode 8 when she got the news that Ned had been captured. Like, girl, you said nothing to your sister who you've seen being a crazy bat for the past few episodes. Like, come on. I feel like once she left the Vale, suddenly the writing of her character got much better. But speaking of Catelyn, I generally don't comment on acting when reviewing things because most actors in most shows are good at what they do, and if I see bad acting, I won't mention it because it feels a little rude. But I have to say, the standout acting in this season comes from Michelle Fairley, who plays Catelyn. She's really so good. I forgot forgot to mention it for the last episode, but that scene where Walder Frey says, I should turn you guys in, and she's like, why don't you? The delivery of that line and her facial expression was so notably good. Other really notable moments from her this season would be when she's sitting at Bran's side and Jon comes in and then she talks to Ned about him leaving. Like, that whole scene was just phenomenal performance from her. Also, the scene in the last episode where she tells Robb what the phrase demanded. It's not the same type of scene. It's more, I guess, awkward and comedic, but her timing and awkwardness is just so well played. As she tells Robb, like, Arya has to marry this guy and you have to marry one of his daughters. And as I mentioned earlier this episode, her acting of grief in the aftermath of Ned's death was really good. I also want to talk about Jaime and Cersei. I feel like one of the main selling points of this show was, ooh, come look at this brother and sister getting it on and pushing a kid off the tower. Like, this show is crazy. But when you actually think about it, they're literally just a plot point who happen to share a father and a mother and a brother. Apart from episode 1 and I believe episode 4, there is absolutely no reason for these two to be both siblings and also lovers, apart from Joffrey's parentage. And look, I get that's how the whole show starts. I get that's the last thing you see in episode 1. And I get that's the main mystery of season 1, the reason Jon Arryn died and the reason Ned ended up in such a terrible spot. But actually that makes it worse because this whole season hinges on something that isn't developed for the rest of the show. And that being Jaime and Cersei's relationship as lovers. After Jaime left King's Landing in episode 5, I'm pretty sure they don't ever see each other again until the season 8 finale, right? Maybe a couple times in the middle, which if that's the case, I have no memory of something so inconsequential. If I'm going to be honest, seasons 2 through 6 are pretty blurry for me. I remember Jaime's scene with Myrcella after he finds out that that's his daughter. But apart from that, it's like, what is the plot purpose and the character purpose of these two being both lovers and siblings? What we've seen in the season so far, they each have a relevant relationship to Tywin or Tyrion. Jaime and Tyrion more so than Cersei and Tyrion, but nonetheless. So because of that, it makes sense for them to at least be siblings, because in this story, those relationships are important to each of their characters and their storylines. They grew up in the same household, they were raised by Tywin, so that explains the kind of people they are. They're related to Tyrion, and so that has a lot to do with both the characters and the plot. But they have absolutely no development in their relationship as lovers. And because of that, the incest plot literally has no purpose other than to make it, first of all, a weird shock factor thing for the audience, and two, I guess to make it easier for Ned to figure out Joffrey's true parentage. I feel like they could have easily replaced Jaime's role as Cersei's lover with literally any random person that had blonde hair, and the show would not have changed in its plot and characterization. It just renders the whole thing meaningless. Of course, this is based on my season 1 analysis alone. I don't remember anything from their relationship in the following seasons, except for that scene in season 8 when he comes back, so that is something I'll be keeping an eye out for. But for now, it seems like there really was no reason for that, except for this random bombshell plot, aka Joffrey's true heritage. And this, of course, only exists to kickstart the official Game of Thrones. Cersei having a kid with someone who's not Robert makes perfect sense because the show was able to establish what happened with her view of Robert and his obsession with Lyanna and him being unable to let her go, blah, blah, blah. We get that. Why did it have to be Jaime? Literally no reason. Like, surely there's blonde characters in the show that are not Lannisters. I know it's a recessive trait, but come on. Some other thoughts I had about this season are about Mad Queen Dany. There are scenes in this season where Dany is super into Drogo's way of handling business, the way she did not care when Viserys was getting killed, and then the way she dealt with the Magic Lady this episode. Knowing she becomes the Mad Queen, it is possible to read those moments like Mad Queen origins. But first of all, I think the Mad Queen idea was really bad. I think it was a terrible direction for her character to go, and I think it's perfectly reasonable for her to be ruthless with somebody like Viserys. And it's not that I'm reading these as Mad Queen origins. I just think that D&D have said like, oh, we sprinkled in Mad Queen stuff all throughout the show. Theoretically, you could argue some of those scenes were Mad Queen origins, but they really aren't. I mean, let's be honest. If I was in Dany's shoes, I would have no problem responding to Viserys like that. I would have no problem dealing with Meaty Mazdur like that. I think Dany is completely justified in everything that she's done this season, but beyond that, there's another issue with the Mad Queen stuff. It's extremely problematic if the writers had her Mad Queen origins start because of her assimilation with the non-white Dothraki, who are painted as savages and called savages by characters of the show. Like, obviously her father was the Mad King, so yeah, they're implying part of it is genetic, but just the way the show is written, this first season is instrumental in who Dany is as a character going forward. So for her to end up in the Mad Queen, it has to have started here, unless they really want to say the only reason she went mad is because of genetics, which is such a stupid cop-out thing to say. Like that would make it 10 times worse. If y'all are saying she couldn't help it, she was drawn to the darkness darkness because her dad was crazy, so now she's crazy. And by the way, I don't know for sure what they've said. I just remember hearing about D&D vaguely talking about how they knew from the start, or they knew pretty early on, that they were going to have to go in this direction. And I think Emilia Clarke had said that sometimes she would be given a direction to do it like this. And she was like, wait, why? And once the Mad Queen stuff came into the picture, she understood. So I'm not sure when in the show that stuff started, but I'm just saying, even if they had done it from season 1, it's still a terrible idea. On the other end of the weather spectrum, we have Jon. Like I said in the last episode and in part of this episode, Jon's struggle to leave the Night's Watch should have come before he swore his oath. Because if they were going to have him fully commit to leaving and then be on the run or something like that, then it would make sense to have him leave after swearing the oath. Because in that case, his choice coincides with the higher stakes. But in this case, since the struggle is about whether his place is with his family, fighting these wars, or at the Night's Watch, dealing with this possibly bigger looming threat, then that choice is more impactful if there's not a threat of a beheading underlying it. But speaking of the White Walkers, I mean, finally, right? Because this show starts with the White Walkers, which is cluing us in on what the ultimate fight will be. It's literally the first scene of the first episode, right? It's the teaser of this entire show. And even though the stuff at the wall isn't written very well until about halfway through episode 7, you still get a tiny hint of what's to come. For instance, when Asha was talking to Bran saying your brother should be going north, and in episode 9 when Walder Frey was like, why should I care about any of these other houses? And they cut to the wall. Like, clearly there was this slight introduction to this theme that all this political BS needs to stop and y'all need to work together to defeat this bigger threat, but this singular semblance of a theme that exists in the entire show is essentially tossed out. Of course, as we get further and further into the story, I can talk more on that and how that theme is developing, but I do know how it ends. This show does not really have themes, at least from what I've seen in this season and from what I very vaguely remember about the other seasons. There are no other themes in the show. Most shows will explore at least a couple themes, and there's usually one central theme that the entire show explores, and they explore that through the plot and the character arcs and the character relationships, etc. Theme for me really drives a TV show. I think it's so important. And the only theme in this show so far seems to be fighting amongst ourselves is stupid and there's bigger threats on the horizon. I guess you could sort of argue that there's these themes about how power is a corrupting force and people are ruthless, but that's not really a theme. That's more like a factual statement. And look, it's okay that the show explores that, but when I think about where the show is going, y'all did not do any development regarding that factual statement. Like, we know there's bad people. We know power is corruptive. What's your point? What is the message of this show, if not put your petty grievances aside and fight the bigger enemy? It just feels like this show should be about more, and it's not. I know they discuss religion a bit in this season, and they get more into that later on, but again, it's not really part of any theme, and it's not explored in a way that reflects our society. It's just not developed very well. Obviously, we have the Lord of Light, which is kind of like super culty, but where does that go? We have the old gods and the new, okay? We have the High Septon who comes in season 5, right? Okay, to do what? Just condemn Cersei and then be blown up by her? Again, this is based on season 1 thoughts and my vague recollection of the other seasons from before 2019. So it's definitely been a while for me. But going into the next season, I'm going to be Hawkeye looking out for any thematic potential, because this show has to be about something more than just power is bad and people are bad. Couple other random things I want to mention before I close out this episode. In terms of structure and pacing, I think the pacing of this season was quite slow. In terms of structure, I mentioned in this episode, I think some of the scenes could have been earlier and flipped around or whatever. There are a lot of characters in this show that we're following, and so sometimes it felt like they didn't optimize each episode to follow the right characters and the right storylines at the right moments. So that's something that I hope to see improve in the next season. It's easier in an episode like this where Ned's death has an impact on everything except for Dany's storyline. So in terms of the overall narrative, of course, you're going to get all the scenes about people's reactions in this episode. Like, that just logically comes next. This show does a lot better when it's trying to organically follow where the story goes, rather than trying to forcefully prolong certain things, throw in random obstacles for no reason, make characters act illogically. I mean, we've had so much of that season, I literally lost count. When I'm watching a show, I don't want to feel the writers pulling the puppet strings of the characters. I don't want things to feel forced. And I think this season had a massive problem with that, which I hope won't happen in the next season. That being said, I remember that Dany spends the entire next season in the Red Waste just doing nothing, I guess. I think she was either not in the second book or she was barely in the second book for like a chapter or two in the beginning. And so the show was like, well, we want to keep her in the show, but we don't have anything for her to do. So they just kind of made up a random plot line for her. I hope they were able to get some character development out of that. I'm assuming we finally go beyond the wall because we saw them leave this episode. We know Arya's heading towards there, and on the way she'll take a detour. I think we're going to be introduced to Marjorie Tyrell, who is another character that had absolutely no impact on the show, apart from her being married to Joffrey being the reason that Olenna Tyrell poisoned Joffrey. We'll see Robb's King in the North efforts. We'll see Tyrion acting as Hand of the King. We'll see Joffrey acting crazy. We'll see Cersei doing something, I'm sure. I honestly don't really care about the Lannister storyline, apart from Tyrion, but even then I'm like, well, he's going to be with the other Lannisters, and I really don't care about Joffrey and Cersei right now. But Sansa will still be in their midst, so that should be interesting, hopefully, now that Sansa's kind of wizened up a bit. And then we'll have something with Bran, because I don't know when he goes beyond the wall. But damn, he was up there for a while, wasn't he? And that just leaves Rickon, who I was actually surprised got 2 whole speaking scenes this season. There was one this episode and one in, I believe, episode 8. But this kid doesn't really have a storyline, right? He's just kind of there. But anyway, I've been going on for way too long, so it's time to wrap this up. This was a pretty good episode. Overall, not a great season, but I think given this episode, they can still redeem themselves going forward. So I will leave y'all with that and see you in season 2. Thanks for checking out season 1 with me. This was Trash Talk Reverse.